In this video, I'll be sharing a continuation of our previous tutorial on how to cut the ruched mermaid skirt with side slits. So if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead to hit on the subscribe button.
You need to fold your skirt first. First thing, you need to get your skirt length, and you need to know what to fold your skirt. So when you're folding this type of skirt, or when you're cutting this type of skirt, you're not going to use your exact skirt measurement. You're going to use something longer to give that free flow on the lower part. Now, to fold your skirt, you can use your hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra 6 inches, or your hip circumference divided by 4 plus extra 8 inches, right? Now, if you don't want to make use of that, you can go ahead to fold your fabric by 18. That is 18 unfold means 18 unfold will give you 36 inches. Now, after folding that, you need to take all these measurements. You need to go ahead to place your tape at your waistline and measure 7 inches for your hip point. Now, this 7 inches is not for everybody. Let's say you're on a taller side, you're a big tall, you should use 8 inches for your hip point. Now, after getting your hip point, place your tape on your waistline. Measure your waist to knee point. Now, let's say the waist to knee point is here. I'm going to go ahead to mark. Now, from this knee point, you're going to go up by 2 inches. This is to get that fitted effect that is slightly above the knee before you connect to the end of your pattern. So I'm going to mark 2 inches above, and I'm going to draw out a straight line there. So after I'm done marking this is the 2 inches. Now go ahead to insert your waist circumference divided by 4. My waist is 28. And remember, if you snatched your waist, you're going to snatch the waist also on the waistline of the skirt. So the waistline of this skirt, we snatched it actually. So we took out 2 inches from it, right? Now these 2 inches, we are going to go ahead to also take it out here. So my waist is 28 minus 2, I have 26. Then 26 divided by 4, that is what you're going to mark here. So let's say here is the measurement, because I'm cutting this in a miniature form so that I can be able to mark the draping or the pleating on the skirt. Now you now insert your sewing allowance 1.5 inches to 2 inches. Now here, mark your hip circumference divided by 4. Now add your sewing allowance 1.5, 2 inches or 2.5 to it. Now this your hip measurement divided by 4. My hip is 40 divided by 4, I have 10. So on this line now, what you do is you're going to minus 2 inches from this your actual hip measurement divided by 4. My hip is 40 divided by 4, I have 10. Then you minus 2 inches from it and you're going to mark. Now let's say this is it, because 10 inches, if you minus 2 inches, you have 8 inches. Just like I said, I'm cutting this on a miniature size because of we are going to do the pleating for the front and also for the back of the skirt. Now, you're now going to add up your sewing allowance to this dress, that is to the knee part, the same sewing allowance you used here. Now what you now do is go ahead to connect from the connect from the hip, connect from the waistline, pardon me, down to the hip point, right? Now from this hip, you're going to take it all the way down to that knee point. Now you now follow this straight line, take it down to the knee. Now from here, you're now going to slant it all the way, going down to that measurement that you folded your dress to. So if you notice, we have gotten our mermaid skirt, and you're going to cut this out. You're going to use this to cut out the back. Then before we can now go ahead to open up the front, slash and spread to get that pleat we have at the front part of this dress. So let me go ahead to cut this out. So if I open this up, this is what I have. Now I'll place another pattern and we'll go ahead to trace the back side of the skirt out. Now to cut out the back, you're going to place your fabric and then you're going to add few inches. Now the tail we have on this dress is not that much. It's, let's say it's on the moderate side. So from the front you can add at least 15 to 20 inches here before marking out your zipper. So now let's go ahead to mark our zipper allowance for the back. Now I'm going to add like 1.5 inches here. I'm going to go ahead to add it. Then I'll stop it at this zipper. Sorry, at these 2 inches we came up. Then I'll connect. Now what I'm going to do is to go ahead to trace this out. I'm going to trace out the sides of this skirt going down to this point, right? Now from here you're now going to extend this, slant it down to that extra tail you're going to have in front, right? Now depending on how wide or you want the tail to be, but whatever that is there is not that much. It should be between 15 inches, 20 or 25 inches extra. Now you're going to take this all the way down. Now going down to the skirt, lower part of the skirt, you find out that it's not on the same length at the front. Now from this measurement, now from your full skirt measurement, you're going to add at least 10, 15 or 20 inches long length to the lower part. So let's say what I have here is 15 inches. Now I'm going to rule out this line, and I'm going to connect whatever I have coming from here all the way down to this measurement, like down to this measurement. So now from here that the skirt stopped, I'm going to go ahead to connect and then connect it back to this line. So I'm not going to make this line too blunt. I'll just make it a little curvy, and I'm going to connect it back. So now with this I've drafted out the back pattern. So let me outline the zip area. So I'll just go ahead to cut this out as the back pattern of this skirt. So now if you cut it out, you notice that you're going to have like a tail at the back, just like we have in that video. And I'm also going to cut out the sides. So this is our skirt pattern for the back. Now at the back of this dress you want to come down by ½ inch because you don't want the zipper to be popping up. So you notice when you make your corset, the zipper is always popping up, the skirt part is always popping up. Minus ½ inch and connect it back to your waistline and cut it out. Now we are going to alter this pattern to create that ruch we have at the zipper of this dress, right? So now before I go ahead to alter it, I'm going to bring my front pattern. Now you're going to go ahead to measure from your waistline to the lower part of your skirt where you want to cut out. You notice there's a cutout on this skirt. So when you take that measurement, so my measurement and yours might not be the same because we might not be the same height. So you want to place your tape and determine that by yourself. So when you get to that point, what you're going to do is you're going to come in by your sewing allowance. If your sewing allowance is 2 inches, 3 inches, you're going to go ahead to come in by your sewing allowance on this point, right? And then go in a little for the curve, so that by the time you shape your dress on this side, right, the sewing allowance here will end. So the extra sewing allowance that we have on this other edge will just flow down to the skirt, to the back part of the skirt. Or you can just go ahead to reduce the sewing allowance on the side of this skirt. But first of all, whatever you're marking should come in. You should come in by your sewing allowance from the front part and then come in a little by ½ or 1 inch. Then go ahead to draw that curve and make sure that it doesn't get to the center of your skirt. Let's say 1/4 of the side of your skirt. That is where you're going to cut it, and you're now going to take it straight. Now if you also place your skirt, you notice that this part of the skirt and this part, you have that flow at the lower part of your skirt. That is the train that we created while cutting the back. So you now also want to trim this out. So this is that side of your skirt that is open, right? Now you're going to like add a patch of your corset mesh to here. That part that there's a corset mesh, you can now add your trimmings to it. So now another thing is, just like I said, you're going to add like a transparent mesh to your skirt. So you also want to determine where it's going to stop after the cuff, like where it's going to stop. So let's say you shaped out your skirt and this is what you have. So you have to like determine where you want the mesh to stop. So let's say that you want it to stop around here. You're going to draw out a line, because where that mesh stop is where the pleating of the skirt, that is that pleating we have on top, will start. So you have to like replace it, and then you have to replace this part of your skirt here a little with that transparent mesh. Now I'll keep this aside. Let's work on the back before we come over to this. Now you notice there's a ruche here, right? Now what you do is you need to use a slash and spread method. Now the ruche is somewhere like this point, extending all the way. So you now want to like create a guideline to where you want the ruche to be. So I'm just going to cut this now. Now you label it. For this one, you're not going to cut it open entirely. It's the front part of the skirt that you'll be cutting open. You cut the front part separately. Now place it back. So I'll be explaining that when we get to that side. Now what you want to do now is to go ahead to open up your skirt. So now if you're going to open up your skirt, so you can go ahead to use a pattern to cut this, right, to cut out your skirt. But if you don't really, you need, for this skirt you actually need a pattern because of all these slash and openings on the skirt, right? Or if you don't want to use, you have to like increase the measurement here, but it's not going to give you the actual result. So for this particular pattern, you actually need to cut it on a pattern paper and transfer your measurements. Now for here, you're going to open it up, right? When you're cutting out your skirt, you're going to trace out the sides, the lower parts and this side. So you notice that on this side I didn't cut it up, so that the side will maintain the same hip measurements. Now for this part, now you're going to open it up, right? You're going to place it on your fabric and open this up. Now if you now open this up, you find out that you have altered the shape, right? So when you're now tracing this back to your fabric, so let me go ahead and place the pattern paper underneath so that you can understand. So when you're placing this back to your skirt this way, right, you're going to trace out the shape you have by the side. Now when you open this up this way, you find out that the shape of your skirt has been altered. Like this opening, you will no longer have like a straight line, just like when you're doing your cow neck dress. Now you're going to open this up, right? Now you're going to place your ruler and draw a straight line. Let me get my ruler. Oh, sorry, let me get my pencil. Now you go ahead to draw a straight line connecting this. Sorry, this is where your skirt is. Now go ahead to draw a straight line connecting to this point. Now you're going to trace out the sides of this skirt. Trace out the sides of this skirt. So I'll use my tape to tape this down. I'll use my scissors to cut this. Right, I'll use my scissors to cut this out. So now this part we are cutting out, we have replaced it with this. So for the upper part of your skirt, now the sides is the same, but the center part, which we have the zipper, is not the same again. It is opened, so that by the time you're done sewing the sides, is the same measurement. What you do is you're going to use your needle and thread and you're going to sew on it, then drag it to give you that ruche effect you have, right? That ruche effect that you have on the skirt, you're going to drag it and it will give you that ruche effect you have on the skirt. So let me go ahead to place this again before cutting out. So I'll take this, keep this aside, and I will replace this at this part. So if you notice now, this side of this skirt is the same as our old measurements, but your center now is now longer. This is the part that is supposed to have that zip. Now I forgot to mention that before going ahead to cut out this part, you need to take the measurements you have here, the original measurements you have here. Go ahead to place your tape. Go ahead to place your tape here. Measure what you have. Now when you place your pattern together, let's say we have taped this up. Let me pin it because I can't find my tape. So you have to like join it back. Now when you now measure here, you find out that it's not the actual measurement. So starting from where you want the ruch to start, you're going to pass your needle and thread to it. You pass your needle and thread and you now ruch it. And after ruching it, make sure that you have the exact measurement from here to this point, which is the previous measurement you cut out. That is what you're going to do for the back. You now find out that you now have that ruch at this point. That is at the upper part of the skirt. Now we are done with the back pattern. Now for this front pattern, we are also going to go ahead to cut it out. Now remember this line where your transparent corset mesh will stop. You need to go ahead to cut this out. Now you're going to label this. So before going ahead to label, measure the distance you have here, because it's going to serve as a guide, because you're going to cut this out and place it on another fabric line by line and transfer all your measurements. So we are using a lot of slash and spread method for this skirt. So you go ahead to label this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Now you keep this aside. Now we're going to go ahead to cut this open. We're going to cut it out open. But make sure that you took the actual measurement from here to here, because you will need to like pleat your skirt back to the original measurement of your dress. Now if you are going to have issues with that, that is after you're done slashing, spreading it back, you can use your tape to tape this back down again, so that when you're pleating your skirt, you can use it to serve as a guide and place underneath your skirt. So let's go ahead to cut this out. Now what I'll do is I'll place another pattern paper with it. Now I'll start with my number 1. That's why we labeled it. You're going to place it according to each other. So I'm going to, and also find a center line. You have to place it accordingly, so the center will rest on the center. So you can now measure the space you want, whether 2 inches, 3 inches, because all this now you will pleat it back. Now place your second, then give space, measure again, place your number 3, give space again, place, give another space again, you place, then measure again. Like, you know that all this space you're leaving, you're going to pleat it to give you that pleating on the side of the skirt. Now what you now do is go ahead to trace out this. You're going to go ahead to trace out this, because you're going to replace it as your new measurements. So here is open. So after tracing this out, you now want to like bring back your main pattern. That is, you place this on your fabric first and then bring back your old pattern and now place and connect it. Now connect it back to as your full skirt. Place it back and trace. You know, we cut out this side now, so now trace it back. Are you seeing? Right, you now trace it back. Now you find out that the upper part of this skirt is longer. This is because of the slash and spread method we are having there, right? Now I'll go ahead to pin this so that it will become one skirt. I don't want to start cutting and replacing it. Now you're going to take this back. So to serve as a guide, you go ahead to tape this line by line, tape it back, or you can just place it and record. Or if you don't have that strength, place your pattern back and tape it back as one skirt, as one piece again, because you'll be using it as a guide to pleat the sides of these skirts. Now let me place this let me keep this aside and I'll go ahead to cut out. Now I'll now go ahead to cut out. So this is what I have. Now let's just assume we have taped back our pattern, right? This is your pattern. Place it accordingly and tape it back, right? And you have cut out your skirt. Now what you do is, this is a pattern that you taped back, right? Sorry for the background noise. I have neighbors that are playing downstairs. So now I'm going to place this now on this. This is now where this your back pattern will now serve as a guide for you to create that pleat effect. So when you pleat, you use your pin and hold it. You pleat. So if you give 2 inches space, right, or 1.5, that is what you pleat out exactly, so that it will rhyme with the sides of your skirt. So even when you're pleating and it's not matching, don't bother. You can still place, after pleating and pinning your skirt down, you can place this main pattern on top of it. Now go ahead to trace out the edges. But whatever you have should be the same length starting from here, and it should end where this actually ends. Now you now go ahead and you start pleating. So this skirt is actually going to take a lot of time to make, and you have to like put a lot of consideration. If you make mistake, you have to like loosen it back again. So you now go ahead to pleat it. So if you don't want to pleat it by this side, what you do is take your needle and thread, pass through and ruch it, right? So you're going to do this after you must have turned it with your lining before going ahead to like shape the side. So if you don't want to go through all this process, pass your needle and thread by the side, ruch it, then pass your needle by the side and also ruch it. But what we have in front is actually a pleat, so you have to take your time to also create that pleat.